Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! For background, I'm a security guard and travel fully uniformed to and from work by train. Transit security in my city wear green or blue uniforms with transit security written plainly on a chest. I was riding home this morning wearing my noise-cancelling headphones when someone behind me tears them off of my head and starts badgering me. "You shouldn't be wearing these at work. Aren't you going to do anything about these bums sleeping in the seats? It's standing room only, and I need somewhere to sit." No. Give me back my headphones." "What do you mean no? You're security. It is your job. Go arrest them or something." "I'm not transit security. Give me back my headphones before I call the cops." "Yes, you are. If you don't do something, then I will call the transit security office and you will lose your job. What's your name and badge number?" For background, my company doesn't provide numbered badges, and even if they did, the number wouldn't be unique to me. I tell her this. "Fine. Then show me your ID. I want your name so I can report you." "Call whoever you want. I am not going to give you my address, crazy lady." She breaks out the phone and calls transit security, who tell her they will meet her at the next station. When they arrive, they confirm that I do not work for transit security and actually call transit police to arrest her for stealing my headphones. So this happened at the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. I had a best friend who really started to irritate me, condescended me, insulted me and so on when he became what we call a shift manager. I ignored it for some time, thinking that it wasn't really easy for him, having to take care of us a lot and the factory where we worked. And this is where he really ticked me off. First, I want you to understand that I'm not the type of person you can trash talk, insult, screw his life up, and not expect 3 times worse to come back. So back to the story. We had some new stuff that came to the factory on which we should work inner molds for car engine parts, and the guy who was there to teach us how to work on the mold didn't manage to teach my dear friend how to work on these molds. Because a guy, my friend, was so full of himself and egoistic that the other guy just gave up after a few days. And here is where my friend taught me how to process a mold, which was, surprise surprise, incorrect. So the day after I get a call from the plant supervisor, cool lady we still contact from time to time, that my molds are all screwed up and that I need to come down immediately to fix them because the CEO was furious. I knew what happened. That jerk of a friend told her and the CEO that I didn't listen to what he was telling me, and that I did everything opposite what he told me to do with the molds. I was furious. Then I was told, as a last resort, that I needed to fix everything from yesterday, which means to come to work 3 hours prior, stay 3 hours later, and come the next morning 2 hours before everybody else. Of course, that is all non-paid, so it's like a big screw you to me. After the CEO and the plant supervisor lady left, my friend started to laugh at me, insulting me and even kicking me over my head. Considering that normally I'm a nice person, I don't like what I can become, and there is a fact I endured this nonsense for 3 months. That is when I snapped. For the record, I have bipolar disorder, the heavy kind. So when I tend to lose control, I really lose it. I took one of the molds and threw it in a guy's face. It's compressed sand for the record. And as he was blinded, I kicked him in the face, plexus and nuts. One more, and a rip as he was lying down. Because there was nobody there at the time to witness the escalation, I scratched my face so that it looked like he attacked me. And I started yelling, "Help! Help!" The two from before came back just as a jerk was standing up, and I told him what happened, and that I quit, effective immediately, not just for this, but also because the paycheck was late again. The day after my mom picked me up, we loaded my stuff in a car and went home. Not a long time passes by and this friend calls me to apologize and to return my stuff that I left in an apartment and my money, about 350 euros, which I lended to him. I said fine, you can come. By the time he came I was home alone and he threw my stuff on wet asphalt in front of my flat and told me, "You're not getting your money back." I just told him, "We will see about that." And then he started to threaten me over Facebook that he will screw up my mom's car brakes, that he will stab me and so on. But not long after that, the lady from the factory contacted me. She told me that the jerk quit his job and stole money from her purse, around 600 euros approximately, and that she wants to find him. Of course, I know where he lives. A few days later, the lady picks me up and we head out to his place. As we approached his driveway, he tried to drive out, so she blocked him, and I rushed outside. His parents, who are really nice people, asked me to not do this and begged me to come inside the house. Inside, the parents tell me that they will give me and the lady money, which we refuse, because he is the one who stole/loaned it from us. He promises to pay us back next month. Later, his parents told me that he works now in a factory where we worked before this job, and that his license plates, insurance and technical on the car were practically expired. The next month, I contact him over Facebook to ask where is my money, and he tells me point blank, "Go screw yourself. You're not getting anything from me. You can call the cops, but you will never see that money again." And that is exactly what I did. I placed an anonymous call to the police station near where he lives, gave the license plate because I remembered it vividly, car description, and that he almost crashed into us and was speeding well above the limit. The next day, I found out from some of our mutual friends that he was chased after by the police, arrested, driver's license revoked for 2 years, and had to pay a fine of 3,000 euros, plus the car was impounded. I told the lady from the factory that he was arrested and else was on the part where I snitched on him, and she was well satisfied. I didn't tell anybody about this, but I was just filled with joy. I know he was now screwed up, and surely he lost his job and his parents disowned him. That is what you get for treating your friends like that. This story starts about 7 or so years ago, but you'll need some background information first. After I graduated high school, I wasn't able to afford college, so I became a CNA at a nursing home. It was a bad job. Literally, I worked there for about 8 months before I left to work for a healthcare agency where I could make my own schedule and also work home care cases. Most of my patients were only allowed a home health aid temporarily while they recovered from surgery or an illness, or sometimes their insurance would only cover a few hours a day when they really needed much more. After several months, my agency called me about a patient that was disabled and approved for 9 hours a day every single day. She was considered a permanent case as someone from the state would come twice a year to evaluate an authorized continuation of home services. I ended up working with this lady, Gary, for about 2 years with the agency. She was a sweet woman, and although there was a generation gap, we got along great. She had a sister, Nancy, who was a self-proclaimed advocate for her sister and her very handicapped daughter, Jessica. I always admired her because she was dealt a crap card with having to care for not only her sister but a daughter who was unable to care for herself too. We lived in New York State and they had recently come out with this CDPAB program that would allow the family to appoint people as caregivers. They would then choose a healthcare agency to process the paychecks. It was nice because it allowed families to have more control over the care they received, and more importantly, you could get paid for taking care of your own family members. But there were limitations, one of which was that you couldn't get paid to work with your child. It had to be a sibling or some other kind of relationship. Nancy really liked me, and when she asked if I'd be willing to work with Gary and Jessica under this program, I said heck yes. At the time, Gary and Jessica lived in different places, but the family was able to get them Section 8 vouchers and moved them to the same apartment building so the aides could do split shifts. With the amount of hours between the two of them, I was easily working a minimum of 40 hours a week. Then things changed. Nancy realized that she could get paid for literally doing nothing. The program is flawed in that the patient is approved for a certain amount of hours, and all you do is fill in the sheets weekly, print a schedule of when people are supposed to work, and return them to the agency that processes the paychecks. There is no way to prove that someone is actually there taking care of that person. At first, Nancy started filling out timesheets for herself whenever there were hours left over for the week, hours that no one worked. She could only claim these hours for Gary so she could fill out a timesheet for her son, saying that he worked with Jessica whenever she had leftover hours. Now, her son did actually help out from time to time, but not for all the hours she was claiming. Eventually, Nancy got greedy and started deliberately stealing hours from me and the other aides. It got so bad that she pushed us out by not scheduling us. I was struggling financially at the time, so this was devastating to me. My parents couldn't afford to send me to college, and here I was working my butt off so I could take a few community college classes and pay my bills. There have been some Medicaid cuts, so it wasn't like I could just find another patient. I was still technically employed at my old agency, and none of their offices had work because there just wasn't enough. Now on to the revenge. The second I realized what Nancy was doing, I started taking pictures of the weekly schedules and everyone's timesheets. Then once I stopped working there, I called up the Attorney General's Medicaid fraud unit and reported her. I explained the entire story, and for a while, I didn't hear anything. Then I heard back from an investigator and I gave him all the details he wanted. I had copies of schedules and timesheets to show that Nancy was pretending to schedule aides but ultimately putting herself and her son on the timesheets. I also had another aide as a witness to back up all my claims. More months passed and then I got a call saying that the CDPAP program was a gray area for them and there wasn't much they could do because it's hard to prove cases like this. So I just let it go and forgot all about it. Then, almost 2 years ago, I got a call from the Attorney General's office, and it turns out the case was sent to another investigator and reopened. They wanted to meet with me and go over some evidence. It was over 3 years after I made the complaint, so many of the smaller details have been lost. Turns out they have been spending the last few years building a case against the family, and they were nearly ready to go to court. And man, did they have a lot of evidence. Apparently, Nancy had forged my signature on the timesheets to put hours that I had worked with Gary under Jessica so she could claim all the hours for Gary. Then she was filling out timesheets for her son who wasn't working because he was away at college in a different state. She was just pocketing all the money for herself. I ended up moving across the country shortly after, so I had completely forgotten about this. Then last week, I randomly googled Nancy's name and had a mini freak out when I read the news articles. Turns out that Nancy and her son were arrested a year ago and charged with a few felonies each. Nancy must have taken a deal because she pleaded guilty earlier this year to one of the felonies and was ordered to pay back over $100,000 that she stole from the state. She also got 5 years probation. Not only that, but it made the local news, and it's the first thing that comes up when you Google her name, which I've changed for the purpose of this story. This is about a decade ago, but still well within the realm of the internet. I was a technical writer for the government and had slowly been transferring our old employee handbook, think government bureaucracy from the 1940s, into a modern and actually useful document. Think one page with our policies and links to useful websites like Office of Personnel Management, forms for worksman comp, and so on. My boss wanted the whole thing printed out on her desk the next morning. This was Monday of the Thanksgiving weekend. I printed out the 200 or so pages and just had the links to the various websites in bold. This took about an hour, and I left it on her desk before going home that night. She calls me in her office on Tuesday afternoon and proceeds to yell at me at how stupid I am. Do I think people can just go to a website when it's on paper? No, I need to print everything out. I calmly told her that these sites are pretty dense and deep and it would be about 10,000 pages. She says she doesn't care and that it needs to be on her desk first thing Monday morning. Mind you, this is now Tuesday and we usually had some of Wednesday off. I was not really planning to work Thursday, Thanksgiving or Friday as I had applied for leave and was looking forward to a nice relaxing long weekend. I don't have a family but I have plans. But okay, I asked for and got the request to have everything pertaining to the employee handbook online in a printed format. I also had real work and real deadlines. A quick bit of context, she was my boss. She did my performance appraisals and she could make my life miserable and possibly fire me. However, my clients were teams that put together engineering plans, biological assessments, scientific journal articles, reports to Congress and so on that had real-world deadlines. On some of these, if you missed the publication date, your agency paid $100,000 a day in delay fees, or you would piss off a congressperson, which is never a good idea. And I was really getting sick and tired of my boss's requests that took me away from my actual work. So I was printing and printing all the rest of Tuesday afternoon. And then Wednesday I had to go to the site, print, click on the next link, print and so on. On Wednesday, we got a congressional, a letter from a Congress critter that was actually important. Had we not gotten that, I might not have done what I did. I got overtime approved pronto to take care of this request, so I did work Thanksgiving. As I was doing that, I kept on printing and printing. I used up every sheet of paper in our 14-story building. I kept on researching the response for the congressional, printing, going to the next floor to carefully get that packet of paper to tuck under the appropriate page, and so on. I had paper in about 20 different conference rooms. I could have done the congressional in about 8 hours, but it was not due until Monday, and all of this printing took me a good 24 hours of work. So I put in for 32 hours, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Got it done, and this is now 2 stacks of paper, each about 6 feet high, and I was way under in my estimate of 10,000 pages, as it was more like about 30,000. Remember, I had at least 5 printers going at once for 4 days and so on. I put this in my boss's office, which was already none too clean and pristine. I got written up with a disciplinary hearing and everything. The charge was malicious compliance. I kept my job only because I did have her request in an email.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.